Welcome to Nonpartisan Hacks, your policy and politics podcast where we talk about good government from the local level on up. I'm Joel Granz.
And I'm Sean Wood.
There we go. So this is our very first episode. So I'm just taking the reins here and figuring maybe I'll just do a little bit of an intro about why are we doing this. And I'll toss it to you, Sean, after you take a sip.
Why are we doing this? Did you want me to answer the question, Joel Granz, or are you going to answer it?
Well, I tossed it to you, so that's radio terminology for you're going to talk about it.
Sure. So I think both of us listen to quite a few podcasts. I kind of feel like as society gets away from traditional media, that podcasts are a really neat way of fitting into your schedule, keeping up on local news, local events, politics, sports, whatever it is you listen to. I find myself listening to it on my headphones when I'm doing other stuff. You can kind of multitask. So seeing as we're elected and we pay attention to a lot of this stuff, it might be kind of fun just to dabble into the podcast world ourselves and see where we can go with it.
Yeah. And for my part, I feel like good government should be boring, but we find it entertaining. We find it interesting. Hopefully people who listen to this will also find the interesting, entertaining aspects of good government, the boring stuff, like not the yelling at each other, not the hyper-partisan stuff. That's why we call ourselves Nonpartisan Hacks. We love the idea of being political hacks, but we don't want to be super partisan at local government level. We are not in a party. We have to make every decision at the council table based on our own, what we see being presented to us, our own background, our own knowledge, our own history, and try to do the best we can from the council at the council table and making decisions on behalf of our community, which is what ideally we're all doing in government, whether you're at the political level that we are, a local government, all the way up onto federal government, where good government, it's the Canadian thing. Peace, order, good government, POG. It's something I learned about in law school. So the idea with the podcast, hopefully you guys will come along with us for the ride and we'll talk about a whole bunch of different things related to, I'd say mainly local government, but we're going to move into provincial and federal from here and there, I'm sure.
It's too bad that people have to pay attention to the drama in government. Government should be like buying a reliable car where it's just going to start every time and it gets you where you need to go. And there's really not much drama or anything to talk about. And so then you can get into sports and you can get into TV shows and movies for your excitement. There should be no excitement in government. It's just doing a really good job in the background. That you
UFC.
Don't even notice it.
If you like the UFC, yes. Watch the UFC. Don't expect UFC to cross into your politics. So that's where ideally it's boring. But the problem is that to get people's attention, political parties, politicians tend to do a lot of crazy things to try to get attention. It's obviously not a good way to govern. It may be a good way to get elected, but even there, questionable. We have an issue too, I think, with the lack of local media now. We pretty much have no local news coverage of what's happening at the council level, which is pretty key. Like the local government has a lot of impact on your day-to-day life. Where does your garbage go? How do you get from point A to point B? It's the roads. How does your sewage get out to the treatment plant? That's all the boring stuff that we do at the local government level. And having an engaged citizenry is key, but how do you get that information? So hopefully we're going to help with that a bit, help with a bit of the kind of literacy around local government and getting the best possible boring government that we can get in Canada.
A shout out to the traditional news media that we still have. Obviously, it's
hang in there, buddy. Hang in there.
It's not their fault. Classifieds used to fund a lot of the traditional media. Facebook Marketplace has taken over a lot of that. That reduces
Craigslist
their funding.
Before that.
Craigslist. And then they don't have the bureaus. They don't have reporters that are assigned to the city of Parksville or city of Nanaimo or to sit in on those council meetings. And now there's reduced staff and they sit through our hopefully boring YouTube recordings of our meetings and glean what they can. And so shout out to the few remaining reporters that are doing that job.
Absolutely.
But, I don't know what the future looks like unless they can sort out some way to move some of those classifieds away from the internet back to their traditional media, which I don't see happening.
Well, federally, they've tried to help with that by subsidizing the media, news media a lot. And I don't know whether maybe that's a future podcast discussion, but yeah, that's what we're about here for all of you tuning in. I imagine that maybe people won't listen to this episode at all, but if they do, then it may be that they circle back on an early episode and listen to us. This particular episode, the first episode, inaugural episode. Thank you for tuning in. Nonpartisan Hacks. So we're going to do a couple segments on this to keep it fun, keep it moving. We're going to do our first segment, I think, right, Sean? It's the quote take.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
And I quote take.
So the quote take segment is basically we pull a spicy quote from local news story or some other thing going on in the world, and then we're gonna react to it, dissect it, chat about it, and see what we think. So I think you've got something queued up there, right, Sean?
Do I? So, Joel, are we going to speak about the Deloitte Canada report on the Metro Vancouver?
Of course,
Regional
everyone
District?
loves to talk about Deloitte reports. That's why people tune in to podcasts.
Yeah. So it's actually a pretty deep dive for our first podcast. We may have already lost listeners when we start to talk about Deloitte Canada or the Metro Vancouver Regional District. A little bit of background. Regional districts are only in the province of BC. Here, where we are elected in the city of Parksville, we have the regional district of Nanaimo. Metro Vancouver Regional District is a gigantic regional district with a huge population, which I should know, but I don't know off the top of my head. And it has 41 directors as its board.
And maybe a little bit more background, because BC is a little unique. We're the only province that has regional districts. They're kind of a local government that is below the province. It's created by the province, but they're not incorporated cities.
It's a federation.
It's a federation.
Yeah.
It's like Canada's a federation. Well, RDN regional districts, they are federations of local government, basically.
Right, and the city of Parksville has 2 appointed members to the 19 member board at the regional district of Nanaimo, and even 19 can feel unwieldy and large, and that's what this report says, is that the 41 member board.
Maybe more of those members should have their own podcasts. Then they can kind of get all the things they have to say out without having to do it at the board table. When 19 people have something to say, it can take a long time.
We won't digress to mic time in meetings when you have rooms full of people. That can be a podcast.
Future podcast right there for sure. I'm sure everyone's excited for that.
So this report came out, Joel, and Deloitte Canada was paid by the board, hired by the board, from my understanding, and Mayor Mike Hurley, who's the Burnaby mayor, he's also the board chair. He was elected by the board members as the new board chair.
Fun fact, he makes more money than the Prime Minister of Canada.
Yeah, he makes about $400,000 with his mayoral remuneration, as well as his board chair remuneration, as well as all the committee remuneration. All of it added up is about $400,000. That's what was on Mike Smith.
Good gig if you can get it.
Yeah, and on the Mike Smith show, he's like, I'm not sure. He actually didn't know, and Mike had already done the homework on it. So there's already a little bit of obfuscation as to how much people are making on these boards. Brad West as well. And this is nothing against the people that we're going to mention here. This is more just to shine a light on orders of government that are existing. Anyways, the quote from Burnaby Mayor Mike Hurley says, there are some things in here that are quick things we can get done right away. We plan on doing that right away. I don't know if that's the quote. That's probably not the quote we wanted to go with at the beginning.
It's our first quote take, people.
Yeah.
We're working on it.
It was, the report did describe the 41 member board as large and unwieldy, which isn't that optimistic of a light from the report.
Well, and here's the thing about regional districts is that the way that they get elected is that you get appointed. First, you get elected to a regional, a local government. So say you get elected as a councillor or a mayor, and then that council will appoint you to this board, and you will make big decisions that actually have tax implications for the local community, because there's a tax bill associated with this board that goes on your property taxes. So here in the regional district of Nanaimo, Sean got elected to be on Parksville Council, and then he got appointed by Parksville Council to sit on the regional district board. And so he'll collect his salary from being on the Parksville Council, which is not particular. It's nowhere near 400,000 or 200,000, and maybe a fraction of that. And then we'll get an additional salary for being on the regional district board. Also very, very small, the regional district of Nanaimo, which is different in Metro Vancouver, because in Metro Vancouver, you get how much per meeting?
In Metro Vancouver, you get a little over $500 for the first up to 4 hours. And then when Metro, a meeting goes over those 4 hours, it gets doubled to almost $1,100. And I also want, Joel, as we move on with this podcast, I want to be completely transparent, since these are public bodies and public governance models and public remuneration numbers. Councillors at the City of Parksville get about $30,000 a year as remuneration. And
what if the meetings go longer than 4 hours?
Which they often do, and there is no extra.
What if this podcast goes longer than 4 hours?
Then we lose our listenership. And then if you are appointed to the regional district of Nanaimo from the City of Parksville to represent the City of Parksville on that board, then that's about another $20,000 a year as remuneration. So
compare and contrast with Metro Vancouver.
I should have those numbers.
Well, I think the mayor, so so Hurley, for example, is the board chair, so he'll get more money than just a regular board member. But as we mentioned, it's in the neighborhood of 200,000. Mm-hmm. But the individual members of the board, there's 41 of them, so they're making decisions that will affect your property taxes. So the bill for Metro Vancouver, the regional district of Nanaimo, that shows up as a line item on your tax bill for your property tax for anyone who pays property tax. And so they make big decisions really that affect taxation. If you're going to go with kind of the U.S. no taxation without representation, it feels like they're, to my mind, somewhat democratic, not ideal situation where you don't actually have a way to elect the people who are on the regional district board. You're electing someone who will get appointed to that board. And so if that board does stuff, it's kind of a hop, skip, and a jump as a voter to hold them accountable if you don't like what they're doing. Now, you can, of course, appear before, come as a delegation or write and all the normal things, but you can't really it's hard to vote them out if you don't like what they're doing, because you don't really know who's your representative. The average person has no clue who's sitting on the board of the regional district making decisions that do have a big impact on your property taxes.
Yeah, and that that kind of leads me into a thing that I always go back to in my own mind, is that people are busy trying to pay their bills. They're busy trying to get their kids off to school. They're busy trying to pay their mortgage and go and get groceries and do a million things. And they don't have time.
Listen to this podcast.
And they don't have time to dig into all the details and figure out who was appointed where and what decisions are made where and the orders of government. They really, we had a provincial election and people were voting as if it's a federal election. People just don't have time to really be as close to the issues as you and I are.
Our listeners, of course, are very up on all this stuff. So
they will be the more they listen to the podcast. And Joel, the board chair at Metro gets paid another $110,000 on top of his Burnaby mayoral remuneration, which we can look that up as well. The vice chair at Metro gets another $55,000. And the electoral area directors there get $32,000, it says, which I'm not sure if that is accurate, but the numbers are much bigger over there. The budgets are huge. And so it all kind of scales up. And I think one of the things we're going to try to speak to here is how government can kind of get bigger and bigger, and it kind of snowballs unless there's some real decision making by the board or the council or the legislative assembly or the House of Commons to make sure that we're not snowballing into something that is too large and unwieldy, which this report says about Metro Vancouver.
Yeah, the Deloitte report. So we'll be interested to see what kind of developments happen with Metro Vancouver. There have been a number of controversial things that have happened around that board that have made it into the public eye. One being the treatment plant going way over budget. but also the some questions around how much the, I guess, CEO of Metro Vancouver takes home in pay and other.
I think that was $750 or something.
Yeah, so a pretty penny to do that job. And again, it's not something that's particularly accountable. I mean, if you're the CEO of a publicly traded company, shareholders have a bit of a say in voting and all that directly on these matters. If you're in a local government situation, again, voters can directly vote for their council. But that's not how the way it works for regional districts, and that's where it gets a little bit messy, and that's where I think we see some of these little trickiness things start to sneak in at the regional district level, which obviously is not really good for good governance, which we're all about here, good government.
It's as if people know there's a mayor and council for their city. Maybe they know their electoral area director if they live in a more rural setting. They know their provincial government is in Victoria, and maybe they even see clips from Question Period on the news. They know their federal government. We just had a federal election. But the regional districts here in BC are almost hidden. They're not on people's radar. They don't know where the meetings, probably don't know where the meetings are, how often they're held, who sits there, how are they appointed or elected there, what the budgets are. Of all the orders of government in BC, it is the most hidden, and not necessarily on purpose, but just the way that the governance model is set up.
Yeah, it's just the way it worked out. Mm-hmm. So welcoming any thoughts from you folks on regional districts and how to improve that situation. End of the day, it really does come down to the people you put in these positions and whether they are the kind of people you can trust to do the best thing for their community, which is certainly what we endeavor to do at this podcast. But, some people get into politics for different reasons. I do it for the money. Yes. I mean, I still have a mortgage, so I'm not sure how it's really helping. It does. I don't know if I could do it for less. I'm happy I do get the amount of remuneration that I do get. And we're not here complaining as well. What I try to do, and I think, Joel, what you try to do as well, is provide the value of that remuneration to the City of Parksville taxpayers and to the regional district. You're also an alternate. We should mention you're an alternate on the regional district as well. Which means when Sean's not there, I can step in and fill his seat, or when the other representative from Parksville, which is a mayor, means that I'm the alternate that steps in if either of those two are unable to make it to a meeting.
And to Joel's credit, Joel, to your credit, you do pay attention. You are almost in every meeting on Zoom, and you pay close attention to what's going on. So that's great.
I try to, and it has a big impact on what's going on. You want to know what's going on generally in the region, which is maybe a good segue into our next segment, which is Sean's surprise. We have another segment. Wow, we've got another segment lined up. This is amazing.
I'm on the edge of my seat here. I'm totally prepared.
Okay, so the last one is a quote take. I don't have any name for this one yet. We'll have to workshop it. Yeah. But the idea is that where a lot of the discussion happens around local government, unfortunately, is in Facebook groups. I think anyone who's in local government has, the bane of their existence is Facebook groups, local Facebook groups, where people ask questions and have conversations about things going on, but don't bother actually looking at any primary sources about the things they're talking about, like maybe looking at the newspaper or Googling something or reading the council updates or any number of things that would actually get you the information and accurate information. So this segment, the idea of this is that we're going to take some things that are happening in Facebook, local Facebook groups, and we'll discuss. So Sean, I'm going to throw this at you here.
Okay, here we go.
So here's a longtime listener, first time commenter, long-time lurker, first-time commenter on Facebook groups, saying council should think about upgrades to our infrastructure, water supply, and address the doctor shortage in the area before building more ridiculous, expensive condos. Discuss.
So the first thing, and I don't know, obviously we're not going to really mention any names on that comment, but the first thing that comes to mind, and we do get emails from people who are worried about the amount of condos and homes that are being built. But I will say that provincial and federal orders of government are screaming for more homes to be built because adding supply is part of the solution. And when I read a comment like that, the first thing I think of is, well, that person has a home, possibly single family detached, and they don't want to see housing density, which is a great place to be in if you already have a home. But for my kids, I don't know how they're going to afford a home at the average price of $900,000 here in the city of Parksville. So
yeah, my kids, every time we drive past a for sale sign, my kids are like, how are we ever going to be able to afford to buy a house with the kind of expensive housing prices that we have now? And what are the solutions to that? This is a huge issue. Like, we're not going to get into that here, but obviously having more housing supply is part of the solution. If there are more houses, more homes to live in, then more people may be able to actually get into a home. And we do have a growing population. We do have people who are wanting to move through the housing, continuum, up the housing ladder, and people get stuck at a certain rung. And the bottom rung is homelessness. And so how do we address that? Well, there are many issues and nuances to all this that I don't understand, but I do know that one of the things we have to do is ensure that there are enough homes to accommodate our growing population.
Yeah, adding a little bit of a personal flair to it, Teresa and I, before we had kids, we had 2 salaries, and we rented probably 10 different spots. We moved around the province so that she could go to school or we could get this job or whatever. And I think we rented 10 different spots before we got into our first condo that we bought. And I think it was maybe $390 at the time. And that was kind of a rung on the ladder for us to move us out of renting, where we were kind of paying ourselves and living in that condo. And then we were fortunate enough to be able to sell. We kind of sold at even price. And then we got into a small house in North Vancouver. And then we sold that house 4 years later. And then we moved to the island and bought single family detached here. And we're very fortunate that prices were where they were at that time, or else we wouldn't be able to. These days, I don't think we'd be able to go for that $900,000 average property price. So I have experienced, obviously, the lower prices when there was less demand in the market, arguably less demand. And now we are seeing a huge demand, and adding supply will help most of the rungs on that ladder, in my opinion.
Well, and wherever the rung is, because there are multiple rungs. And so people often complain that, they're all luxury condos. Which, in our case, there's actually minimal examples of luxury condos that I remember approving at the council table. Mostly what we've been approving is rental housing, which we need more of. But people also need condos because we want people to actually be able to own a condo, especially as part of one of the rungs on that ladder. There's also anyone listening to this from across Canada who will no doubt also resonate with the whole comment around doctors and people saying, well, you keep building more housing. Well, first of all, council doesn't build housing, but sometimes we do. We actually, we made donate land to a nonprofit to help that. We've done that recently in Parksville, and built quite a bit of non-market housing that we help facilitate, do our role. But people will say, well, you keep building more stuff, but there are no doctors or no infrastructure. Where do the doctors come from? Where's the infrastructure come from? How do we tackle that question?
Yeah, we hear a lot about water, and if we ask our staff, our current water supply can handle a population of 25,000 people, is what we're told, and we're not even at 15,000 population yet. The water in the Englishman River, of course, is a different issue. The snowpack is a different issue, and upland water storage is a different issue. We definitely want to have enough nice, cool water for the salmon in the Englishman. That's a completely different topic than drinking water.
Than doctors?
And doctors is a totally different topic. We can speak about that as well. A lot of what we see, and especially since you and I both work with FCM.
FCM, Federation of Canadian Municipalities, for the non-nerds in the audience.
And the Union of BC Municipalities. We see a lot of, if you're the provincial or federal government, if you can hand some of your problems down to kind of what is called the lowest order of government, which I don't agree with.
It's very triggering for Sean. Don't say that.
to local government. If you can hand your problems down to them and they'll take it on, great, because it's one less problem or responsibility or jurisdiction that the province and the feds have to deal with. And we see that at the local government level in a wide range of topics, such as healthcare, such as social services.
But people in the community don't understand they don't understand that the fact is that local government is not hiring doctors, is not recruiting healthcare workers, isn't doing any of that sort of stuff. We do have a role to play there in making sure that our community has the things it needs. But really, a lot of that role is pressuring our MLA, pressuring provincial government,
respectfully pressuring, advocating.
Advocating. Yep. I mean, most of these problems are provincial responsibility, and so we do our best to cultivate relationships with MLAs and provincial partners across the political spectrum. Sean and I make a point to go down to Victoria, which is the seat of provincial government here in British Columbia, on a regular basis to try to, build relationships so that when it comes time for issues that we need to get some help on, and it's been very good. We've actually been able to get some results from doing that. And doctors is one example where as a local government official, and a member of the community, I want to have doctors in our community. I'm very fortunate to have a doctor, but I know a lot of people that don't. And we ended up with a doctor through some kind of, coincidental circumstances. But most people don't have a clue how to kind of work the system that you actually really kind of have to do sometimes to get results, especially in healthcare. So I do my best, and in terms of doctors, even though that's not our jurisdiction, we are trying to do what we can at our level to make sure that we deliver on that. But end of the day, we take a lot of the kind of incoming about doctors and those sorts of things when it's really not our jurisdiction, and there are people who are paid. It's their paid job to recruit doctors for our area. They're provincially paid people whose job it is to do that. I don't know how we solve this, but we do our best here to work collaboratively with everyone that we can to deliver for our community. And that's where the Facebook comments, what's it, off the back or whatever? What's the saying?
Water
off a duck's back. Is that a thing?
Or stuff runs downhill.
Yeah, one of those. Both of those really. But we don't let it bug us but it is a lot of education that this is what we're doing. This is what we can do. And when it comes time to be reelected, if we're going to run again, I'm going to be able to talk about what sort of things that I've done, what you've done, what council's done to try to move the ball forward on these issues that aren't really our responsibility, but we do really care about trying to get the best for our community.
Yeah, you have to be really careful about taking on responsibilities that you don't have budget for, your staff, you don't have staffing for, your staff doesn't have training for, because you won't do a good job of that if you take on someone else's jurisdiction and responsibility. And since we started with the Facebook comment, I would, if anyone is listening at this point, I would say, reach out.
Hi, Mom.
reach out to Joel or myself via email. Mine's councillorwood@parksville.ca, Councillor Granz @parksville.ca. My phone number is public, 604-868-7914. We can meet for a coffee. I can meet you for a coffee. Facebook comments is about the lowest barrier, lowest effort out there,
and lowest result,
especially when people comment as anonymous. You are not showing a lot of effort and passion in what you're trying to get attention to, and I would recommend reaching out to the mayor or council directly and meet for a coffee. Any councillor will meet you for a coffee, I would say, and then we can see that you actually care about the issue enough to meet in person, and you will get more traction on that than posting anonymously as a bit of a rant.
Well, that's what I think. I mean, often I feel like Facebook is a place to vent, but people don't actually maybe understand the complexities of the issues, and they just want to vent about it. But ideally what we're doing here, we're a community. Like we all live together, we work together, play together, whatever. We want to have the best possible Parksville, Oceanside, whatever community. That's what everybody wants. So the best way to get that result is to get involved.
Yep.
Be a participant. It's going to be good for you. It's going to be good for the people around you. That's why I got into what I got into here is I wanted to give back to my community. I want to make the community the best place it can possibly be. I feel like I have gifts and talents and experience or whatever that can help do that. And we all have those. So there are different ways that we can all contribute, but Facebook comments is not one of them. And this will probably be the normal rant that we do in this segment. But I think it's important to encourage each other to get involved, because let's take some ownership of this place, right? Like we all create this community together. So let's all join in that.
Yeah, like we didn't get elected, Joel, because we don't have conviction. We didn't get elected because we're scared to chat with people. And, you know, if you have enough conviction to rant on Facebook using an anonymous title, then email or call us and we'll meet for a coffee and show that you have the conviction to meet a person who is a live human and meet them in real life. 100 years ago, we didn't have Facebook. We didn't have microphones 120 years ago.
We had like rotten fruit or something to throw at people, I think is what we had.
You would get a tomato thrown at you if you're doing the wrong thing.
Please don't throw tomatoes.
But I think we want to make sure that there's that human element for interaction and engagement and community, like you're saying, Joel. And the more we move away from that, the more disenfranchised you're going to feel if you're using a low barrier, low level tool like Facebook to try to engage your government. It is not going to work and you will feel more disenfranchised. So please reach out and make it a real connection with the people who got elected.
There you go. We'll leave it there with enfranchise yourselves.
I'm not sure that's a verb, but
Is it?
It could be.
It is now. So there we go. I think that's probably a good wrap for our first episode here. Thank you everyone for okay. Thank you for everyone for listening. Thank you, Sean, for listening to me.
Shout out to Halifax and Fort St. John's and Nova Scotia, right across country to country, coast to coast to coast, all of our listeners.
Really appreciate it. Thanks for listening to Nonpartisan Hacks.